Bonjour from Paris, friends. I hope everybody's well. My goodness, we're into February, and it leaves me thoughts of so many things that are on my mind that I love to talk about. And I thought, it's about time I talk about role models. Because role models, that is a topic that I'm just so fond of and would love to spend more and more time researching. And when I say researching, which you should know, it's a dirty little secret of mine. I was so fascinated in the topic of role models that I wrote my master's thesis on the importance of role models, particularly for women. Welcome to Generate Her. I'm Jane Bertch. I spent the first half of my life working in a corporate organization, and then I decided to trade that all in to become an entrepreneur. Yes, here in your favorite city of Paris, France. And today, I hope I'm a guide on your journey to personal reinvention and transformation. So I'm not going to read you my thesis. If you'd like to read it, please don't. But if you'd like to read it, it's actually at the library in the INSEAD Business School here in France. But why did I write a master's thesis on role models? What really attracted me to that topic? And what attracted me to that topic, I realized this in talking to a lot of colleagues and women in my circle who are just incredible, really well-established powerhouses. I mean, women who have risen through the ranks in their fields are considered absolute experts. And whenever I'd ask them if they considered themselves a role model, they'd shrink away. They'd shrink away and almost giggle and kind of blow it off. No, how could they be a role model? And I thought, my heavens, you are the ultimate role model. So I became really fascinated with that topic. I also started to dig into it because during those years actually, I was teaching and I had access to a bunch of students who were very young. They had not even started their professional careers. And when I asked them about their role models, 99% of the young ladies in my class right away said their role models were someone in their family, usually a mother, an older sister, a grandmother. So right away they could name their role models. And when I asked them if they considered themselves role models, and this is the ripe old age of 17 to 20, they threw their shoulders back and they said yes. And they were able to explain why. And I thought, my heavens, how can there be such a difference that this young group of women who haven't even entered the workforce versus these seasoned professional women who I knew who are extraordinary women? The concept of role model started to get really nebulous for professional women around my age. Now, when I talk about role model, I think it's important also to distinguish a mentor versus a sponsor versus a role model. And these are three different roles. And I think they're really crucial, not just for your professional development, but your personal development. Let me separate sponsor because you tend to have, I think, sponsors in a professional setting. And that role, a sponsor is somebody who picks you up and identifies you and gets you in the room. So we all need that sponsor. The sponsor is somebody who opens the door and pulls a chair out for you to sit at the table. Those are incredibly important roles that we need in our lives at any age. A mentor. A mentor is usually someone you have one-to-one contact with, an advisor. It could be at work. It could be an older sibling. It could be a good friend. It's that safe space where you can talk about usually professional concerns and they help guide you. So you've got one-on-one discussions with them. Sponsor, probably not so much, but they've seen something in you and they've been willing to pick you up and put you in the right space. So what is a role model? Again, and this being a term that's so important to me, it made me think of the people that have influenced me. And I really, especially these days, want to use that word very cautiously because we have reconfigured the definition of an influencer. Rightly or wrongly, we've reconfigured what that means, especially in the world of social media. Now, to me, an influencer is somebody who has influenced me, and hopefully in a positive way. Very much like a role model. So let me read you a definition from Merriam-Webster Dictionary of an influencer. One who exerts influence. A person who inspires or guides the actions of others. That sounds pretty general, but when I think about in the way that we've changed that term today and what it represents today, that leaves me with pause. When I look at role model, the definition of a role model is actually quite similar. It's a person we look to whose behaviors in a particular role guide us. Wow. So why are those so important for me to distinguish right now? Again, I think for all of us, a role model is a really, really important person in our world. I love it if we have a mentor. If we still have sponsors, I hope that are opening doors for us. But a role model is a specific term I want to talk about. And I think there are a few things you want to be aware of when you're considering role models. And I learned this in my research. Your role models, they teach you about your values. They teach you about what's important to you because you're looking at somebody and you want to emulate what they do. And let's just say it clearly. Let's hope that that influence that they're exerting on you is a positive one. But role models teach you about your values. And why is that so important? For obvious reasons. But your values are your voice. Your values, I believe, are your voice. And we talk a lot about discovering your voice, growing into your voice. Well, your values are how you deliver what's important to you and how you present yourself. So I think role models are incredibly important because they tell you about your values and your values become your voice. And that voice changes. The role models I had at age early 20s when I was working in professional services, financial services, those role models are very different than I have today. But they taught me a lot about values in the organization I was working in. So I wanted to emulate those. And as I learned to emulate those, I started to develop my voice, perhaps with a lens that they had loaned me. So that's why I think role models are so important. Second, what you should know about role models is that you need to have them at any age. I really strongly believe that. And when you have them, you don't have to want to emulate everything about that person. I cherry pick I cherry pick from people who I consider role models all the time. I have created a mosaic of values, of characteristics, of seeing how people address situations gracefully, of watching somebody walk into the room when they're late for a meeting. Are they scampering in, or are they coming in with confidence? All these little things that I see from my role models, I use to integrate into how I want to behave. So you should know that having a variety of people in your life and exposing yourself to a diverse group of people is a wonderful way to attract new values, to attract new ways of being. Number 3, that's important to know about role models. You don't need to be close to them. I think quite the contrary. I think sometimes it's better to have a distance. You don't need to be close to them, but you need to be careful. Especially, I think, in today's world when we've got a lot of noise. I mean, the wonderful thing about the internet is we've got access to so many different people and so many different views. But let us focus on those that enrich us, that make us feel good about ourselves, that don't make us feel that we're in lack of something, that make us want to grow ourselves. Those are the people that we need to be watching. I have a few role models that I love to watch on Instagram. And I've talked about this before, and I think that's the wonderful thing about Instagram is it's a gateway to meet all of these wonderful people. I also appreciate that I'm only seeing a very, very small window of who they are. Rightfully so. I don't have access to their whole lives, nor should I. And they've shared things with me that I can see. And I understand in the context of things, that's just a small window. But they don't have to be close. So you can choose a variety of different people for what you think they offer. So I'll tell you who one of my role models is, and I've said it before, is Tabitha Brown. If you haven't looked her up, I hope you do. Why do I love Tabitha Brown? Because she is 100% her. That's one of the values that stands out for me. And while we're very different people with different interests, I really respect that of her. And I love to see that. And it's a reminder of having integrity for who you are. So she's one. I've never met Tabitha. I'd love to. Mel Robbins. I'll be amiss if I don't mention Mel. And anyone who knows me will say I'm mildly obsessed with her, but I think that she's an incredible role model. She's so honest. I love her voice. I love the way she shares information. I love how she does real talk. So again, those two very different people, I can see such beautifully redeeming factors about them that I think I'd like to integrate that into how I communicate with people, into how I'm vulnerable, into how I open up. So search far and wide for your role models. You never know where you're going to find them. Number 3, and I think this is quite important, your role models can be past or present. I have a variety of male role models that I worked with when I was in financial services. I have public figures that I have appreciated their writing and their values and their care for humanity, some of which are no longer with us. I have people that I watch today in my professional network that I know. I have people that I watch on Instagram. So you can find your variety of role models in all sorts of different roles. And I think that's important. Lastly, and this to me is the most perhaps the most important topic when it comes to things you should know about role models and why they are so important. And I got to this actually through the research that I was doing for my thesis. And I got to this because I realized one of the things that some of the women in my age category, 40 plus, well, a little bit more than 40 plus, in working in professional services. So this is going back 20 years, 25 years. In working in professional services, it could have been likely that we were in rooms where there were very few women. There were very few women who looked like us. Very few people that we could identify with to look at and emulate. So I don't want to get too much into the research topic, but I want you hopefully to understand why this point is very important to me. So as that was our experience, our role models, our characteristics that we learn to appreciate and emulate were potentially very male-centric. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. What I would rather is that we had a diverse balance of lots of different people to look at, but we didn't. Fine. So later in life, those skills, those characteristics that we valued in leadership were perhaps contrary to us. And I want to say that carefully, because this is not in any way to suggest that the male role models I had were less than exceptional. They were wonderful people. I just didn't have the balance of other strong leadership women that I could have also used. And I found a lot of other people in that category. So fast forward 25 years into your professional career, I found that some of the women in my research pool had a very difficult time identifying as role models themselves, because they're just reflecting back to who they saw as role models. So not only could they not see themselves in that current role, which is unfortunate, but it also showed me that they quit's probably a strong word. It showed me that they didn't consciously, naturally revise who their role models are at different points in their life. And this is so crucial, because I feel like when we're young, we talk about role models and we hear that word, and then we get to a certain point and it's almost like it's not of importance, and it absolutely is. And it absolutely is. If there's nothing that you take out of this one little podcast, this is what you need to know. Your role models are so important because your role models are a future vision of yourself. They are a future vision of yourself. Your role models are the vision board, if I use that term. They're the vision board of who you want to be, who you hope to be, how you hope to be seen. And it breaks my heart that we don't continue to go through that exercise of, what do I like about this person? What do they teach me about myself? What can I learn from them? How can I emulate that? Because that is a wonderful way that they did that. And if we do that consciously, it will change the way we see ourselves. So please, please, please think about who your role models are. And if you don't have any, get your pen and paper out and look around you, because I'm certain you can identify some. So how do you collect those role models? Let's talk about some tips. Surround yourself with diversity of information and opinions. We have access to so many different voices. Choose the ones, as we said, that make you feel that you're growing, that you're learning, that you feel good about yourself, that share with you. They don't show off to you. And again, you don't have to know them. Read books, learn about the people that have written those books. There are so many different ways that you can find people around you that are really incredible. And again, they don't have to be in your personal sphere. You just need to have access to their voices and what they're sharing. Number 2, be curious about people. Be curious about discovering who they are, what they stand for, what they do, how they got there. Let me give you an example again of Mel. Mel Robbins has been a role model for some of the wonderful characteristics that I have cherry-picked from her. One of the things I love about her is her podcast. So I sat with that. And every time I'd listen to it, not only did I get something wonderful from her podcast, but I started to discover something about me. And that small discovery was she inspired me to have my podcast. She inspired me to try this because she's very open and frank about where she started, and that gave me courage. So your role models can give you a future vision of yourself and perhaps inspire you to take those actions forward. That's why they're so important. And I want to sidetrack for a second on inspiration versus jealousy. Those are 2 different things. So be careful of those. Inspiration, to me, comes from values and integrity. Jealousy comes from physical products and purses and those sorts of things. So think about who you're watching and what they offer you and how they help you learn about yourself. 3, keep it in perspective. I've said openly that several of my role models, and I've got a ton, I have not even begun to list them out, again, because I cherry pick so many things from them. Adam Grant, another one. Keep it in perspective. We only have a very, very small window into people's lives. So I know that what I'm having access to is probably 1% of who this person is. And it's probably a percentage that's maybe a bit curated, that's maybe more professional because of the event I'm seeing them at, that it's maybe more polished than they would be if they're sitting at home in their sweatpants. So I keep in perspective that they're human, they're not a messiah, but I love these little elements about them. And that's what I want to integrate. And I also say that because sometimes we put people on a pedestal and then we're so bitterly disappointed when we find out that they are human and they have made a mistake of some sort. You know, some mistakes, again, we're not going to go there, are unforgivable, but some are just gaffes of human nature. And then all of a sudden, they fall off of our list as somebody who we think is a worthwhile person. So just keep things in perspective. Number 4, this is a tough one. If you look around you in the circles of people you know, close or not, of the people you watch from a distance, and you can't find anything that is admirational about those people, you need to start again. Think about those people in your circles that are, again, to use the word influencing, who are influencing your day-to-day. That's precious time that you spend with them. So spend it with people that are helping you to become a better version of you. So friends, that's my take on role models. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you have role models? If you don't, will you start to consider that? Will that help to give you insights into the new versions of yourself? I hope so. I hope you try out my little exercise and see how important they can be in helping you find your voice and in helping you discover a future version of yourself. So my friends, until next time, thank you for joining me. If you know of a friend that could enjoy this episode, please share it onwards. And in the meantime, keep shining, and I hope to see you back with me soon. À bientôt, mes amis.